Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /IDontWorkHereLady, where psycho Karens keep harassing customers thinking that they're employees, and the stories are wild. In this episode, we've got Karens throwing tantrums, getting arrested, and one Karen makes the biggest mistake of her life, berating a cop. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories today. Don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So here's some helpful background. I have a social anxiety disorder, which used to be completely debilitating, but now, after a lot of hard work, it's fairly well managed. I can navigate normal social interactions in small doses with minimal anxiety. With that said, my husband's great, and he's helped me a lot to become more functional. Somewhat relevant to the story is he's 6'4", and he's what I call work fit. My husband doesn't go to the gym. He's not buff like that, but he's not scrawny either. He works running a construction business. My husband's calm, has a steady presence, and he never gets upset. So here's the incident. Hubby and I went to the Wally Mart to grab some quick groceries. The cereal I was interested in was on the bottom shelf or two. So I squat down next to our handbasket and I began the process of reading ingredients and comparing my options. Enter the male Karen. The guy comes up to me and he asked where some kind of sandwich spread is that I'd never even heard of. I'm so focused on reading the cereal ingredients that I don't even look up. I just say, I don't know. The guy then says, well, can you get up and help me find it or get somebody who can? You're not really doing anything. I've been watching you and you're just rearranging boxes, trying to look busy. I look up shocked. I stare at a reddish, belligerent face looming over me with a finger pointing at nothing. I kind of shut down. I start sputtering that I don't work here and I can't help him. The guy pushes my basket away from me into the middle of the aisle with his foot, and he begins berating me that all the lazy good-for-nothing workers in this store are non-existent, that he can't find a damn person to help him. Hearing him scream at me, I kind of fade out, and only really perceive his tone and insistent threatening presence at this point. Enter my husband. The interaction maybe lasted a minute or two when my husband steps up to us. I'm brought back to reality by the familiar presence of my husband. He then utters only 4 words in an assertive tone that I've never heard him use before. Each word was spaced out like it was its own sentence. My husband said, "You will leave now." Red face has gone completely silent. He suddenly turns around and he half walks, half jogs around the corner towards the front of the store. Hubby helps me up and makes sure I'm okay. I then grab my cereal and we head quickly to the checkouts. The guy's nowhere to be seen. I guess he didn't need that sandwich stuff so badly after all. Yeah, I think we can all agree that OP's husband is definitely a keeper, and what a rude encounter that was, right? Like, people seriously need to learn manners, because even if OP was an employee, who the heck would want to help somebody after they berate you like that? Hopefully the guy learned a lesson, and this was the absolute last time he does something like this. And guys, as for the voice thing that OP's never heard before, this person comments, my wife and I had been married for 10 or 12 years before I had to pull out this scary man for the first time in front of her. The vapor trail from the sales idiot who finally suddenly got the hint was still dissipating when I turned around to see her eyes round as saucers. It scared the hell out of her too, and it took a little time before she felt okay and we could laugh about it. I've only had to do the scary man bark a few times, but I hear quiet scary man is even scarier. Guys, let me know your thoughts. Have you ever had to pull the scary voice out to get somebody to back off real quick? So I've been enjoying your stories for quite some time, and I have a story to share. Many years back, my husband worked for a polyurethane foam fabricating company. As one of the sales team, he had a key to the building. One of the salesman's tasks was if the alarm went off at the building overnight, the alarm company would call them and they would have to go down to check it out. They were not to call police first. They were to go down there themselves, no matter what time of night or the weather. Anyway, the list is rotated, and of course, no one ever wanted to go down there. I don't blame them. It was a really stupid rule. Like, what if there was a band of armed robbers stealing the office equipment? Most of the time, it wasn't anything like that. The system was old and it would trip with the smallest things. The only time the police were ever called was if they reached the bottom of the list and nobody was available. I've learned since that this is not necessarily uncommon, but I still question why you would put an employee in potential danger instead of sending trained people to handle this, but whatever. After making his first trip there at an ungodly hour of the late night/early morning, my husband did what the rest of them had long since learned to do. Don't answer the phone or make someone else answer it. In this case, it was always me. I would tell them he wasn't there, whether he was or not. And let me tell you, the phone waking up a baby at 3:30 in the morning gets old really fast. We ended up turning off the ringers and the answering machine before we went to bed each night. One night, I was home alone and it was still early. Around 9 p.m., the alarm company calls as the alarm had been triggered. I explain my husband's not home, and I think that's the end of it. But no. They call back half an hour later, and again I say, he's not there. The woman on the other end starts explaining that someone has to go down there. I tell them I don't work for the company. I don't have a key, no authorization or responsibility to go down there. Never mind that I'm home alone with an infant. The woman keeps arguing, raising her voice at me that someone has to go to the office and check on the alarm. I spend a good 5 minutes or so trying to get her to understand that I cannot do that. The woman just keeps yelling, and I finally hang up after realizing that I will never get through to her. 10 minutes later, the phone rings again. This time, it's the alarm company supervisor, who is an even bigger Karen. I need to explain here that I have somewhat of a deep voice for a woman. The conversation goes something like this. The supervisor says the alarm has been tripped at the company. Someone has to go down there. I explain, I'm sorry, but my husband isn't here. She then says, then you need to go. That's when I say, as I've explained to the previous caller, I do not work for the company. She then says, doesn't matter. Someone needs to check the alarm. I just respond, I can't help you. My husband's not here. I don't have anything to do with the company other than being married to somebody who works for them. At this point, I'm starting to get very annoyed and my tone's getting nasty. The supervisor says, as the spouse, you are responsible as well, so you have to go check. Now, way to send me over the edge, not to mention that's total BS. I just say to her, where the hell did you get that? No, I am not responsible. I have no standing, authorization, or responsibility to this company. My husband does, but again, he's not here. That's when she says, don't you lie to me. I respond, excuse me? She then says, ma'am, we know you're lying and that he's there. You need to make him go down there or you have to go. Me, beyond remaining calm and now practically yelling into the phone, and yes, I did wake the baby, said, are you saying I'm lying? My husband's not here. I don't work for this company. I don't have a key, and I sure as hell am not waking up my baby to drag her into the cold for a company that I have no obligation to. If you call me again, I will ensure my husband files a complaint. Can I have your name, please? And this is the point where she hangs up the phone. My husband got home about an hour later, and I told him what happened, and the next day, he gave his boss an earful. Shortly after that, the alarm system was upgraded with a different monitoring service, and the rule changed, so police were called first. Yeah, I'm really glad things were figured out because that was ridiculous, wasn't it? And honestly, that's the first I've heard where a company makes their own salespeople respond to security alerts. And OP's right, like no offense, but what the heck is a salesperson supposed to do if they encounter a robber or something? And in this case, what the heck is OP supposed to do with a frickin' baby in her arms? I think OP's response to Karen should have been, well, if you need somebody to go that badly, then you should go yourself because you are a frickin' security company, not me. And while we're on the topic of security, guys, listen to this next post. So a couple of years back, I was employed as a security officer. So that means a black polo with security in bright white letters on the back. Also paired with cargo pants, boots, heavy-duty belt with handcuffs, flashlights, gloves, all that fun stuff. I'm just saying, it's kind of hard to mistake me for anything else when I was in uniform, but apparently not hard enough. I got off one particular shift at around 10:30 one night. I decide to hit up the Walmart to grab some snacks. Mind you, I'm still wearing all my gear. I was picking out a particularly tasty-looking bag of chips, sour cream and onion, when I felt somebody tap my shoulder. I hear, "Excuse me." I then turn to see a middle-aged woman, about 5'4", white hair, just standing there. The woman looked extremely nervous and she was almost shaking. I said, "Can I help you?" The lady says, "Listen, there's a homeless man over there in the other aisle. I think he's on drugs. You have to go do something." Hearing her say that, I get the familiar "oh crap" feeling in the pit of my gut. Mind you, when somebody tells me a homeless person is on drugs, I imagine they're probably tweaking on meth or PCP. Having a security background, I decide to go have a look, just in case I can help in any sort of way. So I look towards the next aisle over and raise my eyebrow. The woman nods, still looking utterly petrified. I casually saunter over and I peek around the corner. Sure enough, there's a guy standing there, staring blankly at a wall of cookies. The woman then whispers to me saying, "That's him." But then, my first red flag goes up. The guy's not doing anything odd. He's just another guy searching for snacks. But then, I catch a really strong whiff of burnt weed. Probably from a good 15 feet away or so. The guy glances over at me briefly, eyes totally bloodshot, and I'm thinking, wow, this guy is stoned out of his mind. I just kind of laugh to myself and then go back to the woman. I say to her, "Ma'am, I think he's fine. The guy probably has a bad case of the munchies is all." Immediately, the woman goes from timid and scared to absolutely furious. She starts screaming at me saying, "I don't care what he is. Look at him. He's on drugs and he needs to be arrested right now." Mind you, where I live, weed is legal. So I tell her, "Ma'am, he's currently not breaking the law. And even if he was, I'm not a police officer. I don't even work here. This is Walmart." The woman puts up a fight though, and she says, "That doesn't matter. He might not be doing anything right now, but he's a danger to everyone in here, and you have to apprehend him right now." I just tell her, "I'm sorry, but I won't do that. The guy's not hurting anyone, and I can't do anything either way. You can call the manager if you have an issue." The lady says, "Fine, I will." She then storms off, presumably to do just that. I finish up my shopping and go check out. As I'm about to leave, I can see two cops walking in and approach the said inebriated individual, and they talk to him for a moment. They chat, the cops both shrug and turn around to leave. And guess who shows up? The psycho lady. The woman comes running over to them and she starts screaming how they're not doing their jobs and they're letting a dangerous criminal walk away, and that she would have both of them fired if they don't arrest this person. Eventually, one of them had enough and they told her that they would arrest her for causing a disturbance if she continued. Eventually she saw the light and she just stamped off, muttering about moral corruption ruining this country. She saw me leaving and she gave me the nastiest, dirtiest look ever. I just laughed and I waved goodbye to the stoner dude on the way out. You know what? I don't blame her for thinking the way she did, because some people are ignorant when it comes to any sort of drugs. But I will say that the stoner dude out of everyone in Walmart was probably the least violent. Like, the only thing that was guaranteed in danger that night was the bag of chips or the delicious Oreos the guy was gonna buy. Because if you know, you know. Like, those things aren't gonna stand a chance after the dude leaves the store. So recently, I had to go to an appointment at a hospital immediately after work. In fact, I had to leave work early with my supervisor's approval just to make the appointment, so I didn't have time to change. Not thinking about it, I walk into the hospital wearing scrubs. The entire time I was there, it didn't occur to me that I look like staff. I finish up my appointment, spoiler alert, still a cripple. I then proceed to limp walk to my car, cutting through different buildings to soak up some AC on the way. I get to the last building, and a woman in a business casual outfit walks up to me, and she says, "Are you doing anything right now?" I respond, "Nope, I'm just heading home. Why?" She then says, "Okay, come with me," to which I respond, "Okay." We then walk over to this hallway where it looks like somebody spilled a huge fountain drink. She then says to me, "I hate to ask this, but I have somewhere to be, like right now, and I can't get a hold of custodial staff. Can you mop this up?" I respond, I don't work here." She then says, "It's fine, I'll show you the mop closet." The woman walks me to the mop closet, and she says, "It's just we have a lot of older patients and I need this cleaned up before someone slips and breaks a hip. I wouldn't normally ask, but this can be dangerous." I then say, "Well, that makes sense, I guess." She says, "Thank you so much. Just make sure to put down the wet floor sign when you're done." And with that, she leaves. I'm still not realizing that I'm wearing scrubs, and I get to filling up the bucket and mopping. Now, it's kind of difficult to mop when you walk with a cane, so I had one hand halfway down the mop and the other end of the mop cradled between my shoulder and neck. I get finished up and I was about to put everything away when a guy in a polo and khakis came up, and he says, Hey, where is your lanyard and ID?" I respond, "What? I don't have one. I don't work here." He then asked, "Are you a new hire?" To which I respond, "No." He then says, "Then you know you have to wear your lanyard in any building. It doesn't matter which building you work in." That's when I tell him, "Sir, I don't work here. I'm a patient." And then it dawns on me what I was wearing. I said, "I came here from work. I work somewhere else." He then says, "Oh, then why were you mopping?" I just said, "Some lady asked me to and said some old person might break a hip." So it made sense to me at the time. It then hits me. When I told the first woman I didn't work here, I think she assumed I didn't know where the mop closet was because I didn't work in that particular building. And that's the story of how I became a janitor for a few minutes. And for people thinking that this wasn't me having the spine to say no, it wasn't that. I didn't think it was some monumental task. It was cleaning up a slip hazard before some old timer fell. I wasn't exploited, I wasn't being walked on, I wasn't a doormat. Nobody was mean or rude to me. Someone asked a favor, we were both confused, and I didn't think it was a big deal. Yeah, in my opinion, there is no need to explain OP. You can do whatever you want with your own time. With that said though, like the time it took for that woman to get OP, show them the mop and bucket, and explain things, she could have done it herself, but that's just my 2 cents. A friend of mine recently reminded me of this, and it's the absolute best time I ever had dealing with a Karen in the wild. It also happened about 30 years ago, so I'm going strictly by memory here. I used to work for a chain convenience store, and back in the late 80s, it ran into financial trouble. Corporate then decided that to cut costs, they would sell off and shut down all locations that didn't have a gas station attached. This includes my location. Once the stores were sold and closed, our positions would be eliminated and we would no longer have a job. Although I was only the assistant manager for our location, I was effectively running things, as corporate had decided to pull my manager to a different location, and the assistant would be good enough, since the store was closing anyways. Now on to the story. Once the chain announced they were closing the stores, it was no secret that we would be shutting down. Of course, us employees were still expected to give good customer service. That was usually no problem, as we were in a good area and we had pretty decent customers. They liked us, we liked them, but at the same time, we had no flips to give for the occasional Karens. It was nice being able to shut them down. Like, what are they gonna do? Fire us? I wish I could remember specific instances, but 30 years, they all kind of run together now. The most entitled of all, though, was the new owner, who we'll call Ken. It turns out he had bought our location from the chain, and he would be taking over in about a month and a half. During that time, I was working with the head guys from corporate, doing things at the store level for the sale. Meanwhile, Ken came in a few times a week, demanding that certain things be done, as if he already owned the place. The guy wanted us to change displays, order specific products, all that stuff. The head honcho guys had already told me to ignore his demands, so all of them were met with some variation of, "No, Ken, I work for the chain, not for you. This isn't your store yet." Well, Ken didn't take it well. It usually sent Ken off in all of his huffing glory, yelling that I wouldn't be acting like that once he ran the place. Fast forward to the final day. All the other employees had worked their last shifts, and me, as acting manager, I opened the store that morning. The head honcho guys arrived to go through whatever they needed, and shortly before noon, Ken shows up. Ken and the head honcho guys went to the back, and once they came back out, we closed the store in order to finalize everything. The head honcho guys and I cashed out the register for the last time, and most importantly, I turned over my key to the store. Once that was done, something close to the following happens. The head honcho says, "Okay, Ken, we're all done. It's all yours now." They then start packing up to leave. That's when I said, "Just making sure. The chain no longer owns this location. Ken's in charge now, yes?" Head honcho confirms, so I step out from behind the counter. Of course, Ken starts yelling, saying, "Where do you think you're going?" I respond, "Home. What does it look like?" He then says, "You get back here right now and get your butt back behind that counter where it belongs." I respond calmly, "No, I don't work for you." Ken then says, "What do you mean no? I told you things would be different when I took over, and now you have to do what I tell you to do." Me, with a huge grin on my face, say, "You just don't get it, do you, Ken? You bought the store, you bought the inventory, but you did not buy the employees, and you sure as hell didn't buy me." So I'll say it one last time and try to get this through whatever functional cells may be floating in your empty head. I don't work for you. I never have, I never will, and since this store no longer exists, I don't work there anymore either. And since I'm no longer needed here, I'm leaving. At that, Ken starts sputtering and yelling incoherently, realizing that he now has nobody to work the register. As I walk to the doors for my last time, I of course couldn't help myself. As I'm pushing the door open, I turn around, give Ken my best customer service smile, and give him a cheery, "Have a nice day." If I remember correctly, the store didn't open again for a couple of days at least, while Ken tried to hire some employees. But anyone from the neighborhood who had seen him treating us so badly before the sale wanted nothing to do with him. If the chain had been bought out by another company, then maybe our jobs would have transferred over. But Ken bought one location, not the chain as a whole or even multiple locations. And even once the store reopened, it didn't last long. I wonder why. Like, with a mentality like that, I bet nobody wanted to work for Ken. Like, he really thought that by acting like a child, throwing endless tantrums, and telling others that he basically will own them, people would want to stay around him. Like, what a moron. And you guys know what they say, play dumb games, win dumb prizes. Well played, OP. So this happened today while I was at work, and I decided to share it with you. I'm a cop, and I was mistaken for a paramedic. I have basic first aid, and I have a defib in my cruiser, but that's it. Often, cops and paramedics get called to the same call, even if technically it's purely medical and there's nothing job-specific for me to do that paramedics can't do. Often, I'll hang out a while longer after it's been determined that I'm not really needed, just in case the paramedics change their mind due to the patient getting violent or something. I also have to note that we have similar uniforms, but I have a red stripe down my pants, carry a gun, and I have the word police in huge letters on the back and front of my vest, while the paramedics have paramedic written on them. If you're literate and know that paramedics don't carry guns, you can tell the difference. Also, if a cop tells you they're not a paramedic, that should be a strong hint too. With all that said, today I was on scene when a kid started having some sort of a medical emergency where he couldn't breathe properly. The paramedics show up, lights and sirens, and they get him into the back of their ambulance. They left the lights on as they're blocking a lane. Once they get the kid in the ambulance, I'm standing outside waiting for them to head off. My cruiser was parked a couple of meters from where I was standing as well. That's when a lady comes up to me and she goes, "Hey, you need to turn off those lights." And I reply with, "They aren't my lights, they're paramedics, and they're a little busy right now, probably saving a life." The woman then replies with, "Those lights can cause a seizure, you know. How dare you put people in danger like that? That's so irresponsible." I just tell her, "Well, I'm not a paramedic, I'm a cop, so those lights aren't mine." I then gesture to my vest, which says in huge white letters on navy blue, "Police." I looked around. The kid's family was standing at the other side of the ambulance, and they were basically the only other people there. A few people in the area were paying no mind to us at all, and this lady herself was definitely not having a seizure, in my non-medically professional medical opinion. I tell her, "Look, the lights are on for a reason. It's for driver safety to alert drivers that there is an ambulance in the middle of the road. You aren't having a seizure and neither's anyone else, so if you don't mind, please move along." I hate crowding at scenes. Some of this kid's family was close by and they didn't need a random stranger causing a commotion and adding more stress to an already stressful situation. The woman screams at me and says, "I can't believe how rude you are. I'm gonna complain to your boss and have you fired." I just tell her, "You can definitely tell my boss that I didn't turn off ambulance lights. My badge number is this, and if the lights are pissing you off so much, you're welcome to leave. You're in a public area free for people to come and go in." The woman just screams, "Unbelievable." She then stomped off after that, which is good. I haven't yet received a complaint, probably because I'm not a paramedic. Yeah, some people are in their own world, I tell you. Like, obviously somebody's having a medical emergency because ambulance, and this woman's worried about frickin' lights. Like, go pound sand, Karen. Like, go get a hobby or something and stop harassing people doing their jobs. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy, crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitledpeople episode, where bad Karen bosses are getting absolutely destroyed. Guys, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.